Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Fuhrman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. Is it possible for our departed loved ones to offer us signs from the other side? Wendy Willow's husband died, and she was shattered until a series of signs comforted her with the understanding that love never dies. Wendy Willow is an intuitive palm reader, numerologist, speaker, and published writer who has given readings at various psychic and alternative health fairs across Canada and the United States. Her articles have appeared in various spiritual publications across North America. Her website is wendywillowauthor.com, and she joins me on Vox Novus this week to share her poignant memoir, Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, offering comfort and hope after death of a loved one. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus, Wendy Willow. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. Wendy, your new book, Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, offering comfort and hope after death of a loved one, is a poignant and very personal memoir. Let's begin with your life before meeting your late beloved husband, David, and then set out how the path toward your relationship ensued.
Okay, wow. Well, I was divorced from my first husband, 3 children. And the time when I met David, I really was not interested in having another relationship. I was done with men. And but he was a very gentle soul, a gentle being, and he understood me right from the beginning. He was very gentle in his approach, in that he didn't push. We sat down together, we had coffee, we were friends. So it really began as a friendship. And then it bloomed. I realized, oh, wait a minute now. This is a very nice, professional, honest, reliable person who's interested in me. So it took months, and then our relationship grew. So before I met him, it was basically I was on my own with 3 children, and I was struggling a little bit to find, a stability in my life. I had a bookstore at that point in time that was not doing very well, and it seemed like nothing was going right for me until David came along. And it's almost like a fairy tale. Having someone in your life who you truly love and who truly loves you just changes everything.
Absolutely. And as you share in the book, in the beginning, you were a little apprehensive, weren't you?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'd done with men. I'd had a bad relationship, and I was divorced, and it was like, nope, I don't need them anymore. Let's just be friends. So that's how it started.
And what were some of David's qualities? In addition, you said he was a very gentle man. What were some of his other qualities that attracted you?
His honesty. And when I say gentle, it was to not push, to not pressure. Would you like to come and have coffee with me? I always had the option of saying no. He was a doctor by profession. And so he was a very intelligent man. And that attracts me, more than anything else, is somebody who is intelligent, and we can have conversations about anything. And actually we did. We talked about everything under the sun. So it was his honesty, his trustworthiness, his profession. And I think really what topped it was the fact that he just let me be me. And that was very attractive. I didn't realize it at the time, but just being given that option of coming or going, or being with him or not being with him, or it really was, I think that's really what drew me to him. If you have someone that's pressuring and pushing and saying, well, you have to do this, or I want you to do that. No, you just back away. But he wasn't like that at all.
Now, you had mentioned you had three children at the time. How did your children receive David and your eventual marriage?
Well, it was really funny. They just were attracted to him. They were as if they had known him, which was very strange because I certainly hadn't. But but he would come over to the house, and again, it was non-confrontational. There was nothing hidden. He would come over. He would talk to my children, and they were older. They were in college. Two of them in college. One of them in high school. And so they just accepted him right from the get-go.
You say that they acted as almost as if they had known him. Do you think that I don't know if you believe in this or not, but there are some people who believe that we come around in soul families. Do you think they might have been soul family?
It's very possible, particularly my daughter. She and I are very, very close and on the same wavelengths. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if it is a soul family and we are part of the same one.
So you had this wonderful relationship with a man who truly allowed you to be you and loved you for you, who you were. And then a challenge started. David had a health challenge. How did it start and how did it ensue?
Well, I don't know what you know about chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but it's very insidious. It starts gradually. You don't even notice it. And then after a while for him, he started to lose energy. We couldn't go bike riding like we used to, and he climbed the stairs and he'd be short of breath. And even though he was a doctor, it didn't really click that there was something really wrong. I guess he figured, well, whatever it is, it'll pass, but it didn't. So it was a gradual buildup of this lung disease. And by the time he went to see a respirologist, it was like, oh my God, this is serious. And he was put on home oxygen right away. We were both reeling because we didn't understand the seriousness of it at the time. So there he was with an oxygen hose in his nose and walking around the house with this oxygen thing. And it was very traumatic. And the thing is that our life basically stopped in terms of traveling together, going out, having fun. He was inclined to stay home and he didn't want to go anywhere after that. He did continue to work for a little while, but he took the oxygen off, which you're not supposed to do. But he did, and he would still see his patients. And then, about a month after that, after continuing with his work, he got sick. Somebody coughed on him, and he ended up with a very bad pneumonia, and that was the end of his profession. So it was very traumatic. And I think I mentioned in the book that he was on home oxygen for 8.5 years. And all that time, it was like a gradual decline. So it was tough.
Many of us who have lost loved ones know the challenges and fear of having them placed in either palliative care or hospice. What were some of those challenges for you, and what would you offer to those experiencing this right now?
Yes, it's tough. I think making that decision to place somebody in hospice is a very difficult one for most people. Now, in our case, David had already made that decision. He was in the active care hospital. He could hardly walk at that point in time. They had done all these tests to figure out, is this just a temporary setback or is this permanent? And by the time the tests were all in, and the respirologist came to talk to us in his hospital room, and she said, basically, this is the end. And David said, how much time do you think? Because nobody really knows. And she said, weeks, months, no more. So he had already planned out in his head where he wanted to be when this happened. And I was still in shock. I was like, well, no, I want you to come home. I want you to be with me, And he knew that wasn't going to happen because of his serious oxygen needs. It's when you're in the hospital and you're on oxygen that's coming from the central part of the hospital, it never goes off. There's no worries. If you're at home and you have a power failure, then you have no oxygen and you have to get hooked up to these portable ones. So it's always a concern, always a worry. And at that point in time, he needed to be in a hospital, in a hospice setting. So it was a very tough decision. And I don't know what advice I would really give people except to just, I guess, do what they feel is best to help the patient. And I guess consult with the professionals and just, I don't know. I really don't know.
Having been through that experience myself, self-care is very important. As much as you want to love and be with your loved one, you have to take care of yourself.
Oh my goodness, yes. And you don't realize it at the time. You really don't. My whole focus was, on my husband, and, he's slipping away from me. He's dying. So you don't even think about yourself. And you do have to at some point, because otherwise you just go into the ground.
Absolutely. And you have to be present for them, but you have to be present for you to be able to be present for them.
And that's hard. That's challenging. And I think I was extremely lucky in having a husband who understood all that, because when he was in the palliative care, the hospice at Mount Sinai Hospital, he told me to go home every night. Now, there were a couple of nights I stayed over. That was allowed because it was hospice. But he said, no, I want you to go home. You need your rest. And I'm thinking, wow, here he's the one in this serious condition, only a matter of days, weeks, whatever left in his life. And he's looking out for me. So I was very fortunate in that. And it was tough going home. It was tough to leave him, because every time I went home, it was like, well, is he going to be alive when I come back the next morning? It was, it's hard. And I didn't really look after myself. You just don't, but you have to. So yeah, it's not easy.
having had a partner myself on home hospice for the last 8 weeks of her life, I know exactly what we're talking about here. And it is so essential that you care for yourself, because if you're not going to be able to take care of yourself, you can't be fully present for the loved one. And that's what we're talking about. So it's very important that people take care of themselves.
Yes, you're right about that. Yes, absolutely. One thing I did do, well, when I got home in the evening, my daughter would call and she'd say, Mom, what can I do? And I'd say, there's absolutely nothing you can do, but just tell me about your life. So I know there's a normal world out there, because I really felt like I was in a different reality, going to the hospital every day and then coming home. It was like crossing a bridge every day, going into an unrealistic place where my husband was dying, and then going home where you'd look out the window and people were walking their dogs or planting their gardens. It just didn't make any sense to me at all.
In Silver Butterfly Wings, you share in detail David's final day. Reflecting back now, what were some of the feelings that were running through you?
Oh, wow. Yeah. He was unconscious for a day and a half. And it was, first of all, complete denial, confusion. What was happening to him? What was happening to his body? I felt abandoned completely, because it happened to be a Saturday, the day he died, and the regular staff weren't there. So I went running out of the room several times. What's happening? What's happening? And the regular nurses were gone, and his doctor wasn't there. And I just felt like I was completely abandoned. He was unconscious. His breathing kept changing, and I just did not know what to do. So his brother came in for a little bit, and it was, again, this sense of being in an unreal place, the brother coming in from somewhere. And it was like a shock. Well, who are you? Where did you come from? But because that represented the normal world, and I was not in the normal world. So it was very tough. But I think the hardest part was in accepting that he was dying. And a lot of people are able to let go and tell their loved one, it's time, you can leave, it's all right, I'm going to be fine. I couldn't. It took me until the very, very end, when something signaled to me, some internal signal, made me sort of reach down towards him and whisper into his ear how much I loved him, what a wonderful person he was in this life. And at that point, that was when I could finally let him die. And it was about, I don't know, maybe an hour later that he did let go. But I as well, I was very fortunate that I had these last hours and minutes with him. And my daughter was there. She was there, and being a nurse, she knew exactly how to guide people through this process. So what she did was she said, well, let's put our hands over his heart. And, I was like freaked out. What's going on? What's happening? He can't be doing this. It was complete denial. So I did as she asked, and we both put our hands on his chest. And that way we could feel his last heartbeat fading away. And then he was gone. And those precious, precious moments you will never have again. So I feel very grateful that she was with me at that point in time. And I don't know what advice I can really offer, except that just be there, be present, be there, and be open to whatever happens. I was feeling all these changes in movement, changes in the atmosphere, as if his soul was departing his body. Now, if you had asked me that years ago, I would have said, no way, it's not how, you don't feel that kind of stuff. A body dies, they die. But no, I actually felt the spiritual qualities of his body slipping away. And it was very, very profound.
You mentioned the support of your daughter, and you talk poignantly about washing and cleansing David before leaving the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very grateful that she was there. She was guiding me, because I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have just sat there and looked at him and waited for a nurse to come along or a doctor to say, okay, time to go. But because she knew how to give end-of-life care, she said, well, let's wash him. Let's look after him. And I thought, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I can't just get up and leave the room. I'd cared for him for years, 8.5 years. I couldn't just walk away. So it was part of the ritual. And I was very happy that she was there to help me through this.
In addition to funeral and memorial preparations, grief may manifest rituals that help us cope. One of those you share in the book is about coffee. Please tell our listeners.
Oh, my goodness, yes. David loved his coffee. He absolutely loved coffee. And so we would go and get coffee in the mornings, mid-morning, just as a kind of an everyday thing. We were retired, so, obviously, and we could do that kind of thing. And whenever we went out on a car trip or any kind of a trip, there's a coffee shop, let's go to and get a cup of coffee. And after he died, it was very strange leaving the hospital and going home. Well, I passed a coffee shop, Tim Hortons, where we used to go. And I thought, okay, I need a cup of coffee, but there was no way I could just buy one for me. We had done the couple thing for so long. I bought one for him, and I thought, am I losing my mind? Well, I don't really care at this point in time. I need my coffee, and I need one for him. You can't just let go because the person's dead. You can't, or I couldn't. He was still there with me somehow. And so I went home and I poured his coffee under a tree in my daughter's front yard. And that became my ritual at home. When I went back home, there was a beautiful oak tree in our backyard, and I called it Grandfather Oak. And every once in a while, every day, I can't even remember if it was daily, probably. And then on occasions and so on, I would go to the coffee shop and I would buy 2 cups of coffee, and his the way he liked it, double. And I would kneel under the oak tree and I'd pour his there and hoped he would get it. Now, it might sound strange, but as you mentioned, we do need these rituals to keep us connected. Because just the thought of death is inconceivable. It's how can it be? We're linked to this person. We love this person. And it just boggles the mind that they're not here anymore.
Absolutely. My guest is Wendy Willow. Her new book, Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, Offering Comfort and Hope After Death of a Loved One. We're going to be talking about some of those signs in our next segment. Wendy, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
My book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indigo. You can go on my website, which is wendywillowauthor.com. And you can see the book there. You can read excerpts. I have some questions FAQs, if you like. So you can read a little bit more about how I became, how I wrote this book. And you can get it through the buy button there. And I don't know.
And you also have some wonderful blog posts there.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, I do enjoy writing blog posts. And the last few are more about where the excerpts of my book have been published. There's something called Psychic News. There's something called Mystic Spiritual Way. There's a few other publications where they've put some excerpts. And I guess the blog posts as well I started to write them about the first book, Reading Between the Lines, my experiences as a palm reader, and it's just taken off from there.
And we'll be back with more of Wendy after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
So I'm a cat. And I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week, Wendy Willow. Her book, Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, Offering Comfort and Hope After Death of a Loved One. Wendy, what was it like planning David's funeral arrangements?
We didn't really have any. He didn't want anything. He was a very quiet person. And he didn't want any fuss or anything at all. So there was no funeral planned. And what happened was he obviously was in a funeral home and he was cremated. And then we scattered the ashes later on, his boys and I did. But as far as a formal funeral, no, we didn't have one. In fact, he didn't even want to have an obituary in the paper. He was too private a person. And being a doctor, he really didn't want his patients to read. Well, I don't really know. That's speculation, but he was just very private and didn't want the whole world to know that he had died. But I felt at some point that, no, wait a minute, this isn't right, that his patients have a right to know. And so I did write an obituary. I was very careful with it. I didn't put in any personal information like his date of birth, or what he died of, or anything else. I just said that he had transitioned in the arms of his family, basically. So I was respectful of his privacy, but at the same time, the obituary was printed in the paper.
You received some very early and different signs after David's passing. What were some of them? And when did you come to the understanding that they were actually coming from David?
Wow, there were so many, and I thought I was going crazy. How can somebody from the other side send messages? It didn't make one iota of sense to me at all. The very first one, I believe, was no, that's not true. I was going to say the butterfly. The first ones were, he was patting my shoulders in the night, and that must have been like the night after he died. And I was shocked. Like, how are you feeling pats, actual physical patting on my shoulders, on my hips. And I would click on the light and I jump out of bed, and there was obviously nobody. I was all by myself in the house. And I thought I was imagining things, but it was very strong. So the other thing too, actually, this is really the first one, was those feelings of love after he passed. And I never thought I would feel this way. I never thought of anything really, but it was the same day that he passed, and I was lying in bed at night, and all of a sudden I could feel these waves and waves of love, like it cocooning me. And I thought, where is this coming from? It was nothing like I felt on earth at all. And then I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that that was David sending me his love, telling me he had transitioned and he was okay. And the next morning when I got up, I felt horrible. There I was in the kitchen, making breakfast, making coffee for one person instead of two, and all my beautiful feelings of love had gone. But the second one was the butterfly, and that's when I was sitting on my back deck. It was 2 days after he died, and I was bawling my eyes out. I just couldn't come to terms with the fact that he was gone. I would never see him again, and I was just in so much pain. And then all of a sudden, something caught my attention. Like when you think someone's looking at you and you turn around and, yeah, there is someone watching you. It was that kind of a feeling. So I looked up, and there was this butterfly sitting on his chair, on the back of his chair. And I looked at it. So it's a butterfly, but it was so still. And I kept looking at it. And I'd never seen that kind of butterfly before. And then this poem sprang into my head, do not stand at my grave and weep. And I thought, where the heck is that coming from? And it just came to me that, oh my gosh, that must be David sending me this message, a sign that he's okay. So the first thing I did was to go on the internet and Google butterflies after someone has died. And I found out that it is an ancient Chinese belief that when you see a butterfly after someone has passed away, it is their soul returning to tell you that all is well. So this is why I called the book Butterfly Wings. The silver came from the fact that I had seen a butterfly when I was out walking in the evening, and I did a lot of walking. I had to get rid of this grief, this pain. I walked and walked and walked and walked and swam and ride my bike and just had to move. But one evening I was out walking and I saw this butterfly way up high where it shouldn't have been. And then all of a sudden the wings turned to silver. It was like, wow, what's happening? It was probably the setting sun, the sunlight changing, but it really struck me. And that's how I got the title of the book. Now, going back to the signs, kitchen lights flickering. I mean, really, you hear about that, and I've never believed that. But they flickered all summer, and I kept thinking, what's going on with these lights? It never happened before. Oh, well, whatever. And then TV would turn on. I don't even watch TV, and the TV would turn on. Like, again, what's happening? And then it kind of gradually came into my consciousness, all these things that I've heard other people say about lights going on and off, TVs, radios turning on. No, it can't be. Come on, really. But for me, I'm drawn to nature. And I think the signs that really got to me were the ones when I would go outside and a bird would fly right in front of me or sit on a branch right in front of me, look into my face. And it's almost like, oh, what are you trying to tell me? Butterflies, of course. When I talk about birds and nature, there were ducks in our front yard. There's never ducks in our front yard. There's no water around. what was it? Oh, the cardinals. There was a couple of incidences with cardinals. There was one in my daughter's backyard. I was babysitting the grandchildren. And one time I looked out and there was a cardinal and it was just singing at the top of its lungs, just completely singing. And I couldn't figure out why. Yes, I know birds sing, but this was like going on and on and on as if he was trying to get my attention. And then I went into the house to see if my granddaughter was okay. She was watching a TV show, and the TV show was about a bird that a little boy had captured, brought in the house, and the mother had said, no, you have to let it fly free. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's the message. You can say, well, that's not a believable thing. But to me, the messages were true because it was always the timing. I had to have heard that cardinal outside. I had to have been in the room when my granddaughter was watching that particular TV show. This is how the messages come. And there was another one with cardinals that was in my son's backyard. I was there for my first birthday without David, which was really tough. And I went upstairs. I was sleeping downstairs in their guest bedroom. I went upstairs in the morning, looked out the window. Their tree was full of cardinals, completely full. I told my son about it, and he said, oh, yeah, that's nice, whatever. For him, it was nothing. But for me, it was like, wow, a treat full. And David always talked about cardinals. Whenever we would see them outside, he'd say, oh, there's a cardinal. Oh, and when you see one, you always see two. They mate for life. And so I knew that it was coming from David. It was another reassurance sign. But I think the biggest for me was when he was being cremated. That was really tough. I didn't want to know because I didn't want to have that picture in my mind that he was going through the fire. So I told the funeral home, no, I do not want to know. And for some reason, my daughter called me and she said, Mom, everything's fine. Everything's going ahead as it should be. The cremation date is Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And I said, no, I did not want to know. She thought she was doing me a favor. She was looking after all the administrative stuff that goes along with, somebody passing away and the cremation and getting the ash, all that kind of stuff. She just took over. And so I thought, okay, well, fine. I don't know what to do. What do I do? I don't know. But the time came, and so I decided to go to our tree, Grandfather Oak, and take David's cup of coffee and pour it under the oak. And I sat there and I said a prayer and I thought about him. And I had this image in my mind that we were holding hands. And so, in other words, we were together for this. And once again, if you had asked me this a couple of years ago, would I believe in these images, believe in messages? I would have said, no, absolutely not. But this vision popped into my head that we were holding hands and he was going through this fire and it was okay. So I got up, it was done. I got up, and then all of a sudden I could hear dogs barking and sounds. It was almost as if I was in a trance or something, but maybe a dream, or I don't know what it was. I just felt like I was somewhere else until the dogs started barking and car doors slamming and, okay, well, it's time to go in the house. So I went in the house, got a glass of water, the doorbell rang. I thought, I do not want to talk to anybody. No. I'm in this very vulnerable, horrible place right now, and just go away. So what I did was I peeked out the window and I saw two men standing on my doorstep, and I thought, just maybe I better answer the door. Maybe they're from the city saying, well, you shouldn't be lighting candles. I forgot to say I lit candles and put them under the tree. Maybe I had broken a law or something. I don't know. So I opened the door, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And the fellow said, hi, my name is David. And I lost it. I just cried and I cried and I cried. And the poor guys standing on my doorstep, they were looking at one another like, what's wrong with this woman? But to me, that was confirmation. What are the chances? Right after this ritual that I had performed, this being with David while he was being cremated, what was the chances of someone ringing my doorbell whose name was David? I mean, that was the turning point for me when I decided, you know what? These are really signs from him. I can't not believe anymore.
The ancient meaning of the name David is beloved, and that name kept coming up over and over again.
Yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. And even, it's funny because even the other day, you're going to laugh, but I was line dancing. And I was thinking about David and, the fun we used to have together, the vacations, the trips, the everything. And I was just at this class, line dancing class. A new man walks in the door and he turns to a lady beside him and he says, "Hi, my name is Keith." That's fine. So he comes over to me, goes, "Hi, my name is David." I said, "Pardon?" He said, "Yeah, I like to tell everybody a different name. So see who remembers my real name," or something. He was being silly. But I just stopped right then and there, like, whoa. Okay.
And you sure about a storekeeper named David?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that was, yeah. There was a storekeeper. There was David cookies they were talking about.
A license plate?
Yeah. That was really strange because there I was driving cross-border shopping. And, that's not a big deal, except that when you're suddenly on your own, everything is frightening, everything is scary. And just getting in the car and driving, okay, what's going to happen to me? My husband is gone. He's gone. Someone took him away. That's the feeling. What else can be taken away from me? So you get in the car, or I got in the car, a little bit hesitant, a little bit fearful. And why am I taking this trip across the border? I'm going to have to talk to the customs agents. And of course, the first time I did that, "Where are you going? What's your business?" "Well, I'm going shopping." "Are you alone?" And the tears came down. I thought, I don't want to cry in front of a customs agent. Yes, I'm alone, kind of a thing. But that's how you feel. You're always alone after that until you get these signs. So there I was driving along. Maybe I should go home. Maybe this is a silly thing to do. I see this license plate, this car passing me. And it just said David, no numbers, nothing, just David. Like, whoa. So I thought, okay, it's just fine. And I went and I had a good day.
And you weren't traveling alone?
No, physically, but spiritually, no, not at all. And I still feel him. I mean, it's been 12 years and I still feel him from time to time. And so, no, he's always with me and always will be.
You had mentioned that gentleman pretending to have the name David. Are you receiving any other signs and messages right now?
Yeah, actually I am. There was another person that introduced himself to me as David, and it was like completely out of the blue. There was no reason for him to introduce himself. I think I was standing in line at the grocery store or something, and it wasn't like he was even turning around to have a conversation. He just looked at me and said, "Hi, my name is David," and then he walked away. Excuse me? Yeah, and in the natural world, just looking at flowers blooming when they're not supposed to. There was one in my backyard that I had planted last year. Never bloomed at all. And then this year, on the anniversary of his death, I go out into the garden and there it's blooming. So yeah, I still see signs, not as many, but they're still around.
My guest is Wendy Willow. Her book is Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, offering comfort and hope after death of a loved one. We'll be back with more of Wendy after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from New Thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council. What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Wendy Willow. We're talking about her new book, Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, offering comfort and hope after death of a loved one. You had mentioned that after David's passing one night in bed, you felt as if he was touching you on the shoulder and touching you and comforting you. And our listeners know that I lost a partner back in 1998. Her name was Judy. We had a very, very amazing and life-changing 3-year odyssey of love together and healing. And on the day of her funeral, I came home. And at the time, we had 2 little cats. And these cats would always follow me around, and they would follow her around when she was alive. And I was very tired, and I decided to lie down in bed. And I was face down, and all of a sudden I feel plump, plump, and I look up, I raise my head, and there are the 2 little cats, like 2 little sphinxes sitting in front of me. And all of a sudden, their gaze turns up to the ceiling above my back. And I'm watching them, and their gaze starts coming down, 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 level with my shoulders. And then I felt 2 hands touching my back, rubbing me and comforting me. And I knew it was her. And I knew it was her way of saying she was there and that she loved me and that all was well. And I'll always be grateful for that experience.
That is so profound.
Thank
She
you.
really was there for you and loving you. There's no question.
Absolutely. One of the other symbols that came up for you of signs was the dragonfly. Tell us about the dragonfly.
Yes, that was basically the second year. I had lived through the first year and survived. And the second year was more about evolution, me evolving as a person. And dragonflies symbolize transformation. I quote Animal Speak. That's a book that talks about symbolism of, it's written by Ted Andrews, and it's symbolism of a lot of animals, insects, and so on. And it seemed to me there was a lot more dragonflies around the second year than there was the first. The first was all butterflies, many, many of them. And then the second year, it seemed to me that there was dragonflies. And I just took that to be, okay, so you're moving on, not moving away from David, but just moving on with your life, growing and becoming stronger and trying to figure out who I really am. Because when you lose someone you love, and you've been their caregiver for so long, the whole focus is on that person. And then all of a sudden they're gone. And you say, okay, well, who am I now? What do I do with my life? The first year is all about raw grief, and it's horrible. There's no getting around that. You have waves of grief. And then you have periods of time when you're okay. But when you get through that first year, the second year is more about growing. And then I started to notice people around me a little bit more. I would go to meetings with my financial advisors, and I would be more interested in what they were saying instead of just zoning out. And I learned to be stronger in a lot of areas of my life, making decisions and so on. So I was transforming. You don't always want to acknowledge it in the beginning because you feel if you're growing and learning and being a better person, well, somehow I was leaving him behind. That was my first thought, the guilt. You have survivor's guilt. How could I be going on without him? But you do. And I had to remind myself that I was still alive and he would want me to go on. He would want me to get better in life and move ahead and grow. And I learned so much about spirituality that just from the signs and the dragonflies, I really felt like they were there helping me.
Absolutely. How may we learn to trust messages from our departed loved ones?
Well, for me, it's all about feeling. If it feels right inside, then it is right. And yes, people may start out being skeptical. I was very skeptical. You can't see it. It's not there. But you don't see the wind. You don't see love. There's many emotions and feelings you don't see. You can't prove scientifically. That's kind of silly. But it's the feeling that you get. And so for me, it was like, okay, yes, this feels right. This is a sign. If I see a pair of herons or if I see something else, then it may be a sign, it may not. But when you get that inner like a gut feeling, to me, that's the best way. I think like what I said before about the timing, that works really well as too, to make it seem that it's a sign from the person or the spirit, I should say. It's always when you're just thinking about them and then a song will come on the radio, your song or something. Or like I remember looking up at the sky and I was crying my eyes out and there was a heart. And I've heard other people say that too, blossoms falling from trees and that at the wrong season, or they look in the snow and they see a heart or something. And it's more this feeling of comfort. And I think that's Spirit's intention, was to send us comfort. We're not gone. We're not completely obliterated. We're still around, just in another form, a spiritual form. And somehow, in some way, I feel this spiritual form is stronger. I don't really know how to explain that, except that it seems there's no time. It's timeless. The spirit will be around forever and will always be there. So I can count on David's spirit. If I need help or if I need guidance or something, I can always just ask, and he's there.
And as we both know, and as you say in your book, love never dies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I still feel it. It's very strong. And I think, if I need protection for some reason, if I'm say I'm going on a long car drive or something, and I say, okay, David, please protect me, keep me safe. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he will.
Absolutely. As we know, grieving is unique to everyone. There's no right way or wrong way, just our individual process. What would you offer to those recently bereaved?
It's tough. And I think that you need to go baby steps, moment by moment. First of all, it is going to be a rough ride. There's no getting around that. It's a process. It will take time. And as you said, Victor, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's process is different. Some people will take a long time to get through, and some people will be relatively quick. But family, friends, if you have support groups really, really worked well for me, because the people there understood. They were going through exactly the same feelings and emotions, and it's a roller coaster ride because the carpet has been pulled out from under you. And so nothing is the same. Your world is upside down, and you just can't go on with a normal life. So there's lots of time in there when you feel disoriented. So my advice is just to seek out other people and talk with them, because when you talk with other people who have gone through this, you know that they understand what you're feeling, and you don't feel as if you're all alone and feeling these horrible feelings. Now, if you're lucky enough to receive signs, then that is also a big comfort. Now, what I would say to people is not to push it, not to really fight and say, well, I want a sign, because it won't happen that way. It's more just being opening your mind and saying, well, hopefully I'll get a sign today. And that's when it comes, is when you're not forcing or pushing. I don't know, Victor, if you looked at my book when I mentioned dreams, and there was one dream I had. It was horrible because I was forcing. I was saying, okay, I want my husband to be here with me in a dream. I want him here. Yet I need him here. And I had the most horrible dream that he was back in existence. And it was so black and horrible because he couldn't breathe. And so I woke up in the morning and I felt so bad that I was trying to get this man back into this earthly life, and he could not breathe. I mean, it was just it was a nightmare. And so from that, I realized, no, stop holding on, let go and let God, as they say, and just allow things to happen. And be aware at the same time, which may sound a bit contradictory, but it's not. If you're aware of what's going on around you, I keep talking about nature, or, what's happening in the media. All of a sudden, something will trigger. Like, oh, wait a minute, that was his favorite color, or that was his favorite story, or that was his favorite drink, or, like I'm saying in nature, what happened with my mother was that I had a hibiscus tree of hers that when she passed away, I got it and I kept it for 2 years. It didn't bloom. On her birthday, there was one bloom, and then it stopped. Yeah, I could tell you a few more stories about that.
Wonderful.
But yeah.
As I shared, this book is so wonderful, and it's truly very personal, very poignant, but it's a guide to the grieving process and the messages that we can absolutely receive from our loved ones from the other side. We have a couple of minutes left. I just want to talk about your career in palmistry. Tell us about your palmistry and also your book, Reading Between the Lines, A Peek into the Secret World of a Palm Reader.
Oh, yes. Here's another thing, too, that at the beginning I was very skeptical about. There's no really exciting story of how I got into palm reading. I wish there was. I should make one up. But it was really my neighbor that had said to me one day, oh, let's go. There's a palmistry workshop downtown Montreal. Let's go and check it out. And it's going to be exciting. And I said, well, why? You believe in that stuff? And she goes, yeah, it's fun. So I went, and oh my gosh, I was overwhelmed. It was just amazing what you could read in somebody's hand, the lines, the signs. And when I finished that course, I grabbed everybody's hand I could, and I could actually read these lines, the lifeline, the headline, the heart line. But for me, like I said before, I'm a very feeling person. I had to touch the person's hand, feel their energy, and then I would get these pictures and these thoughts and these feelings about what was going on in their life. Now, palmistry is more about guidance. It's not about fortune telling. It may have been a long time ago, or with people that try to cheat other people out of, taking their money and telling them good things. But that's not how it started. Way back thousands of years ago. It started as a form of personality guidance, counseling. Where am I going? What are my strengths, and where should I be going in this life? What should I be doing? What would be the best path for me to take? I've had questions like career. Do I go into electronics, or do I work in a bookstore, or and I get a lot of questions about romance, and is this person right for me? And my first thing is, well, how does it feel? And some people know, some people don't know, but it's really a form of helping people, and every experience is unique. Even if two people's lines look the same, it doesn't necessarily mean they have the same reading. They're different. And I decided to write that book after writing a series of articles that were published in the Alternative Journal in Montreal of Therapy. I forget what it was called, Alternative Journal of Therapies or something. And this was way back in the 90s. And I decided, well, why don't I just write a book? Because then I can put all my experiences down. And it's also a way of educating people. Like I said, it's not all about gypsy fortune telling and cross my palm with silver. It's different now. It's more accepted today. And I really wanted to focus the book on how somebody coming to have their palm reading can actually be helped, helped in their decisions, helped in their path. And that was the focus of the book.
Her new book is Silver Butterfly Wings, Signs from the Other Side, offering comfort and hope after death of a loved one. Wendy Willow, please tell our listeners one more time where they can get your book and find out more about you.
My book is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Indigo. There's a lot of other online places as well where you can get the ebook. Now, it's not going to be out until November 1st, so another couple of weeks. But if you go on my website, wendywillowauthor.com, you will see the book there and a button to click on that says buy now or pre-order.
And also she has these wonderful blog posts there, wonderful reading, a lot of sharing and segments from her book. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this very, very important and powerful message.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being on your show.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.